Part 1. Tekoah Gotti, 24 years old, lived on Vermeil Street. She couldn't sleep all night, even though everything seemed fine. She was healthy, stress-free, had a promising career, earned a six-figure annual salary, lived comfortably, and had a sizable savings account. Work was optional because her parents and grandparents had left her a large sum of inheritance. Still, she couldn't understand why she couldn't sleep. At 5 o'clock in the morning, she prepared for her usual walk on the beach. She enjoyed walking on the sand early to watch the sunrise. Tekoah drove a few blocks from her home to the beach, walked along the sidewalk, and went down the steps to the shore. Turning her face, she saw something unexpected that caught her attention. Someone had left a valuable piece of jewelry by the sidewalk, as if it had no value. A note was attached to it. She picked up the jewelry and tucked the note into her pocket while she examined it. It was a beautiful piece indeed. Shortly afterwards, Tekoah married her fiancé, Temeni Othman, an African business tycoon she met in a restaurant during lunch. Less than a year later, they welcomed their first child, a boy. Later, they had another child, and within 7 years, they had 4 children. The tapestry of their lives was beautiful, but not perfect like most families. Jesse was the eldest and the heart of the household. As the oldest, he believed everything belonged to him and that everyone should focus their attention on him. Shoshana was the second, Zamira was the third, and Nonso was the youngest child. Temeni was very busy. His business was headquartered in New York. Most of the time, he was out of the city or out of the country on business trips. When he found a good opportunity, he would hop on a plane and leave the children with Tekoah to care for them. She never complained about anything, but accepted her responsibilities without issue. She didn't work after their marriage. Managing the household was her duty. She'd never shown favoritism to any of her children. Jesse alone was a challenge. He was never tired of his histrionic behavior and trying to manipulate people. He was too much for any patient parent to nurture. He was full of mischief, but she dealt with him prayerfully, patiently, and lovingly. Each child was born with different characteristic traits. Tekoah noticed that Jesse was spoiled beyond repair from a young age. He was selfish, a narcissist, and a mythomaniac who was always blaming his siblings for his mistakes. She tried to correct him, but when that failed, they attended child counseling, which also proved ineffective. He continued down the same path of fabrication. Sometimes, he would boldly tell nonsense or make up stories to validate or seek acceptance for whatever he claimed. At times, he pretended to be a victim or distorted the truth to make himself the hero or more intelligent than his siblings. He was a troublemaker whom no one could help. Zamira loved her brother. She was his defender and comforter. Shoshana was as beautiful as her name, like a lily or a rose. She was graceful, strong, resilient, and pure-hearted. Her voice remained calm and composed in any situation. She quietly observed people with a glance, whether they were trustworthy or unreliable, arbitrary or balanced. Her communication was always clear, spoken with love, free of platitudes, and usually to the point. Some people don't like her directness, especially Jesse. He would say, "Shona, you are too categorical, or you said that to hurt my feelings. I don't like that. You tend to criticize me for no reason. Give me some slack." But her calm demeanor was admirable. She would look at him and nod silently, but Jesse called it criticism. Zamira was passive, observant, and compassionate, sometimes candid and also taciturn. Although she was the third child, she was the one who often resolved her siblings' disputes and kept peace among them whenever misunderstandings arose. She found joy in that. At an early age, Nonso loved reading. His mouth was filled with words of sound wisdom like a knowledgeable old man, and he enjoyed children's Bible stories. At one point, Shoshana called him an old soul because everyone noticed that he was born with hyperthymesia. Since they were young, they had been close, but that didn't mean there was no friction. When someone started an argument, Tekoah, the disciplinarian, would gather all 4 of them in a room, talk to them, and ask them to resolve their differences before leaving. She would shut the door behind her, which was some form of punishment. As a result, they learned to resolve their problems peacefully and naturally. If the troublemaker began something, the other children would avoid any conversation that could turn into a dispute. Jesse and Nonso were watching a Christmas movie. Jesse said, "I've always wondered why the shepherds were the first people the angel announced Jesus' birth to," Nonso said. "Although the shepherds didn't sacrifice the lambs, they cared for them and provided unblemished ones to buyers for sacrificial atonement, foreshadowing Jesus' death. Thus, shepherds had to be the first to know there would be no more animal sacrifices for atonement of sin because Jesus would be the Passover lamb. That's why he was immolated on the day of Passover." Jesse looked at him for a moment and said, "Okay, book boy, if you think you know so much, why didn't the hotel host make room for Mary to give birth to Jesus instead of letting her deliver him in the barn? Never mind. The barn provided privacy, which Mary needed." Nonso was still watching the movie. He replied, "If Jesus had been born in a house or hostel, his birth would have been ordinary, like any other. Animals are born in fields or barns. The predetermined place of birth for the sacrificial lamb had to be a barn, just like every other lamb." Jesse thought about it, got up, laughed, and said, "I guess it makes sense, knucklehead." The family has an 8-year-old theologian." He left Nonso and went to the kitchen, where Tekoah and her children, along with the assistant, were preparing dinner. Temeni was working in his office. Jesse didn't address anyone specifically, but asked, "Do you know why Jesus was born in a barn?" Shoshana gave a dismissive shrug, and Zamira did the same. Their mother and the other lady were listening. Jesse said, "Because Jesus was the sacrificial lamb, he had to be born in a barn like every animal," he said proudly, and told them about the angel and the shepherds, but not in explicit terms as Nonso had. Tekoah was proud. She hugged him while gently caressing his head. She said, "Oh, wow, my love. You are so biblically intelligent. That's so enlightening. I'm so proud of you, baby." Shoshana was reading in the library when Jesse entered, grabbed a book, and flipped through the pages. He picked up another, looked at it, and sat at the large oval desk to read. Shoshana turned her face, smiled, and kept reading. He grinned and said, "Shona!" She ignored him. "Sis, guess what?" She shrugged and kept reading. He said, "I was thinking, now that we're getting older and have friends, and we live in a big and old house, don't you think Mom and Dad should buy a modern house as large as this one with a pool too? But I don't know if they would sell it. Don't you think we should ask them to do so? It's been 7 years since they renovated the kitchen. I was 9 then. This house is huge, but old. It's a time capsule. Mom has refused to let go of it because her great-grandparents built it." Still, Shoshana kept quiet, but listened. He said, "The room under the garage. You know, Mom said not to go in because it's too dark and could be dangerous," he said with a grin. "I went there last week," he exclaimed. "The half-sized entrance door has a light bulb on the left side. The room is big, dark, and creepy, and it smells like mold and mildew. I want to go back to explore. It's very exciting." She said, "But Jess, how could you disobey our parents? That room is forbidden to all of us. If something had happened to you in there?" Smiling wickedly, he responded, "But nothing happened. I want to revisit it, but I need a headlamp." Shoshana said, "Jess, the room under the garage is..." Tekoah stood outside the library door and asked, "What about that room? Didn't your father and I explicitly tell you children not to go in it?" Jesse quickly said, "Yes, of course, Mom. I was telling Shona not to go there because you and Dad had forbidden us. You said it could be dangerous in there." Hearing him distort the truth, Shona glared at him but stayed silent. Tekoah reached out, hugged, and kissed his forehead. "That's my boy. I'm so proud of you, my love." Jesse flashed a wicked smile. Shoshana got up and walked away, leaving him with his lies. The children grew older and chose their career paths. Jesse majored in computer programming and stayed on campus. Shoshana majored in business administration and accounting. She was a computer science expert. Zamira decided to study aviation, and Nonso also pursued a double major. business administration and theology. He graduated and earned degrees in both. At Zamira's graduation, Jesse said to his friend sitting next to him, "A woman pilot. I'd like to know which airlines she'll be flying for so I can avoid flying with them." Unfortunately, Nonso overheard his comments and gave him a stern look, but that didn't bother him. He tended to criticize everyone behind their backs and to their faces. Nonso corrected him in front of his friend, saying, "Jesse, please stop your negative ways. That energy was bad for everyone." Jesse was embarrassed in front of his friend. He said, "Baby brother, mind your business." After finishing school, Jesse, Shoshana, and Nonso worked for their father. Then Jesse found a better job elsewhere and resigned. His siblings were doing well and continued learning from their father. Jesse married a young woman named Amber. His parents hosted a lavish wedding and reception. It was quite an event. Amber was a nurse and a beautiful woman who worked at a hospital several miles away from their home. She and Jesse didn't want to start a family right now, but they were carefully planning for the future. Temeni went on a business trip from Johannesburg and returned. He wanted to see his children. At this time, only Nonso and Shoshana were living at home. Zamira took a week off from work to be with her family. They gathered and had a barbecue in the backyard. Jesse drove to his parents' house with his wife, parked in the driveway, and left Amber in the car. She grabbed her handbag. When she saw her, Nonso walked over to the passenger side and opened the door for her. She smiled and hugged him. Seeing that, Jesse said, "No need to do that, bro. My wife is a very independent woman." Nonso nodded at his brother's words, smiled, but remained silent. Jesse then walked to the backyard where his parents were sitting at the table talking. He said while hugging his father, then his mother, "There are my favorite people. Dad, how are you? It's been 2 months since I saw you. Is everything okay with you?" His father smiled and said, "Yes, by the grace of God, I'm well and blessed. Business is good." His mother smiled. Jesse hugged her again and kissed her cheek. "How are you, Mom?" Rubbing his arm, she said, "I'm okay, honey. I missed you, though." Amber, walking and chatting with Nonso, approached her in-laws and asked, "How are you, Mom, Dad?" Both responded, "Good. I'm so happy to see you again, Dad," Jesse said. "How was your trip?" It was exhausting but worthwhile. Jesse gathered the family to make an announcement. "Mom, Dad, family, Amber and I are building a house. We will move in as soon as it's finished." His father embraced him and said, "Congratulations, son, Amber." Tekoah said, "I'm proud of you both, Jesse, Amber." Smiling, he said, "Thank you, Mom, Dad." His siblings hugged him, and Nonso shook his hand. Jesse said something to his father, who went inside, returned with a piece of paper that looked like a check, and handed it to Jesse. He hugged his father tightly. A few weeks later, Amber filed for divorce due to irreconcilable differences and removed her name from the house's contract, although the divorce was not finalized. Temeni's gift blessed Jesse, so the payment had to be made in full before closing. Therefore, Amber's signature was not required. Jesse's apartment was filled with boxes in a corner, ready to leave as soon as the house contracts were signed. He told Shoshana that he was miserable about the divorce. She advised him to ask Amber to attend spousal counseling. Amber automatically refused because the changes she hoped to see in Jesse didn't happen. He stayed contentious even after many months of therapy. He insisted he wasn't so bad. He had his ways of handling issues, but Amber couldn't understand that. Tekoah and the entire family watched Jesse's destructive ways with regret, but they couldn't help him because he didn't see anything wrong with his behavior. Therefore, no one could. The children gathered to celebrate their parents' wedding anniversary. The atmosphere was warm. Temeni kissed his wife on the cheek while holding her hand, lovingly thanking her for the wonderful years they had shared, and apologizing for the times he was away on business. Nonso smiled as she listened to her father's speech to his mother. Jesse openly expressed his dissatisfaction with Zamira's piloting, saying she should stay in her lane and choose another career or start a family. Their father, hearing his prejudiced and feminist remarks, frowned, stopped speaking, and remained silent to let Jesse voice his opinionated insults. The party's mood immediately shifted. Nonso looked at his elder brother and said, "Jess, you've disturbed Dad's speech. With all due respect, I must tell you, you lack self-control and respect. You can't stay quiet, even if your life depended on it. Your mouth is a firebrand that nothing can put out. But has your conscience ever accused you of your actions? The scriptures say, 'When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent.' Proverbs 10:19. But you are thoughtless. You hurt people with your words. This energy torments me. I can't listen to your judgment and condemnation. I don't think anyone wants to hear your negative opinion either. Please, change." Listening to her children brought sadness to Tekoah's eyes. Shoshana said, "You've interrupted, Dad. The scriptures also advise us, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger." James 1:19. As for me, my thoughts are elsewhere. Jess, Mira has always been your defender, but you turned against her, always. Brother, your behavior is like a mosquito that annoys people. It reveals your hopelessness, helplessness, and inability to control your thoughts. Your stubbornness worries me. As the oldest, you were probably spoiled from the start. I understand, but I cannot tolerate your offenses and sarcastic remarks. Please do us all a favor. Observe quietly. Keep your opinions to yourself next time. Dear Big Brother, I care enough to tell you the truth with all my love. Your life needs a complete change of heart. If you don't make a change, I don't know, things will not turn out well for you." Samira said, "I couldn't say it better, sis. Big Brother, please, pray more and talk less. People will appreciate you." Smiling sheepishly, she asked, "How is your wife? And what about the divorce? How is it going?" He stared at her and nodded, then said, "Amber and I couldn't work because we were incompatible," she told me. I laughed when she said that. They probably thought of his mocking laughter whenever someone said something he disagreed with. Shoshana said, "That much I'd noticed. Love is blind, they say, but Amber is not stupid. She didn't want to live a life of torture. I knew once she detected your personality, she would leave the marriage." "That's not fair," he exclaimed. Temeni quietly looked at Tekoah and their grown children. Jessie said, "You don't know the woman I'm married to. Yes, I love her, but she's impossible to live with. She twists everything I say or do, or gives critical and lingering looks. Either she claims what I said was wrong, just to put me down." Shoshana said, "Brother, did you say, put you down? Or did she tell you the truth? Everyone knows you. You're restless when things don't go your way, and you twist things to make them fit." Jessie yelled, "You are just like her." The tone of his voice made his father stare at him. Tekoah said, "Children, please. That's enough. This isn't the time for your bickering. Your father and I have had enough of it." Jessie ignored his mother's warning and said, "It's okay, Mom. My siblings are just like Amber. They think they're always right, which is why they're defending her. But what do they know? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They believe they know everything, but they're just egotists." Temeni looked at Jessie with a troubled expression and said, "Jessie, my son, you've started this petty argument. As a man, you are too weak. As the elder of your siblings, you should have set an example for them. I remember the first time I held you in my arms. I was happy you were a boy, and that you would be my heir to manage the office. I thought you would protect and advise your younger siblings, but you have always acted like a spoiled 4-year-old, throwing tantrums when things don't go your way. Do you ever think wisely? Sometimes it is wise to stay quiet, even when you are provoked. You like antagonizing your siblings and making them feel worthless. I heard you tell Nonso that you were my favorite because you had my complexion. He was 7 years old. Yes, I understand that you were young, but his reply made me think differently, and it was enlightening. He said that God has a reason for creating different complexions. He used the example of a rainbow with many colors, because those colors are beautiful in God's eyes. Jesse wrinkled his nose in dissatisfaction. When he made that analogy, you called him a midget to belittle him and ordered him to be quiet. And again, he said that he was taller than most of his classmates. However, even if he were a little person, he would be okay with that because a bouquet of the same height makes no sense to him. But a bouquet of different heights looks beautiful. That's why he thinks God creates different sizes and heights. I was so happy to hear a 7-year-old school his elder brother about life, but still, you didn't get it. Why don't you try to correct yourself and love your siblings with flaws and all, if that were the case? Jesse, we are family. If anything, we should stand together as a whole, but your overbearing attitude is overwhelming. B.F. Skinner would call your conduct reinforcing behavior because you think it gives you the results you seek. Even though I've spent almost half my time away from my family on business, I'm tired of your bad attitude. I've heard your stories and your insults or sarcasms directed at the children. Still, I said not a word, but your behavior is unacceptable. You cannot keep disrespecting your siblings and think it's okay because love has kept them quiet. Your siblings and who knows who else have had enough of your insolence. They respect you as their elder brother, but they don't deserve your arrogance. You have disrespected them countless times in front of me, and today, you've done it again in front of all of us at the table, offending your mother and me. This was supposed to be a day of celebration of our love and marriage, but you've devastated my mind and spoiled my mood with your immature thoughtlessness. But Dad, what about them? They were bothering me. I was trying to make them understand. He offended them, but he tried to sound conciliatory. You began criticizing Mira instead of supporting her. Instead of shocking everyone with your negativity, why not invest your time in loving your family? Find a way to make them happy and proud of you. Jesse responded in the same tone. Yeah, Dad, everything to you has to be about investing. That's why you leave your family all the time to go invest. Wow. That was a bold comment. Tamani's face tightened as she slowly turned to stare at Jesse. Tekoah nodded silently, signaling to her husband not to act impulsively. Jesse was now stunned by his remark. Tamani examined Jesse's face, nodded, and said, Your therapist said that you would outgrow your behavior, but here you are, at your age, I don't know. Whatever triggers your actions, pray about it because only God can restore my faith in the hope that you will change someday. Please don't let this happen again, especially in front of me. If it does, you won't like the other side of me. Jesse sat quietly and listened to his father, who always seemed calm and allowed Tekoah to nurture, teach, and guide the children with wisdom and kindness. However, he was surprised to hear his father reprimand him so harshly. Tamani stayed quiet, but paid full attention to the children's behavior. Being the eldest, Jesse thought Tamani agreed with his attitude, but Jesse was wrong. Silence didn't mean agreement. Jesse shamefully bowed his neck and said, Dad, Mom, Mira, and everyone, I'm sorry. Sometimes I lose control of my thoughts and speak without thinking when I joke about things. He stood up and added, I'm truly sorry, then sat back down. Everyone sat quietly, ignoring Jesse's previous remarks that caused all the trouble, and started eating dinner. They had heard his apologies many times before, but he couldn't help himself. Give him a few days, and he'd start again. Tamani called the family's attention and said, I apologize to you, honey, and to my children for leaving you many times over the years to go on business trips. I had to work to support my family, fund your education, and secure our future. Now, I've decided to work remotely to ensure I have more time to spend with my wife and children. He smiled and said, Shona, Nonso, I'm proud of you and the work you are doing at the office. He held his wife's hand and said, Honey, I have a surprise for you. I booked a cruise for us to celebrate your birthday, so start packing. She looked surprised. But we have to fly to Florida to board the ship. It will be in a couple of months. Tekoah said, You gave me 2 big surprises today. Thank you, honey. The children applauded. Shoshana said, Mom, Dad, you should take us with you. He nodded and said, No. This trip is for your mother and me. We go as a family every year, but this time, no children. Your mother and I deserve some alone time together. The family will go together next time. We'll make it soon. Think about where you all would like to go. Honey, why don't you rent a car? I think it'll be more fun. He nodded in agreement. Tuesday morning, Jesse flew to the Carolinas for the house closing, which was scheduled for 3 in the afternoon. After the closing, he posted a selfie he took in front of the house, calling it his castle. He didn't mean it as his castle, like a lot of people sometimes referred to their houses as their castles. He suggested the house was a castle because the area where he bought it had extravagant houses. Of course, most of them looked expensive. After weeks of begging his siblings to visit the house, none of them went because they didn't want to be insulted there. They knew him. If that happened, it would be their fault. One day, he called Shoshana and asked her to visit. She said blatantly, "No thanks, Jess. I don't want to encourage your conduct, nor do I want to be the aqueduct that enables your grandiloquence." And she hung up the phone. Each sibling declined his invitation one after another, but each paid for the gadgets he chose in a major store as a housewarming gift. Nonso also didn't make an excuse. He said, "I don't like flying, nor will I drive so many miles to go there, because you aren't sick. I will not leave my comfortable cage to drive hundreds of miles to your castle to hear your sarcasms." "I'm sorry, little brother. Everyone has abandoned me, even my family. But I thought you would be the exception." "Who do you think is to blame?" "I'll try to change." "It's been almost 2 months since I moved here. No one has visited me. I miss all of you. Please, talk to the family and see if they have changed their mind to visit." "I don't promise, but I'll talk to them about your complaint." "Thank you. I'll appreciate it. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what country or city you're watching from. Rate the anecdote on a scale from 1 to 10, and provide suggestions for improvement. Thank you, and stay tuned for the sequel.